Wonderful. Well, let's get started. First question. Do I need a partner to reach enlightenment?
Oh, of course not. No, it's a helpful catalyst for sure. But enlightenment is a path everyone has to walk on their own in that sense. And if you don't have a partner serving as your kind of conscious mirror or guru, as we talked about in the last episode, anything and everything is like life is always reflecting to you what you need to see. And every moment, the guru is speaking through your life circumstances if you're paying attention, right? Yeah. So it's like, just pay really close attention. This has been my experience. You don't need to go find an external guru in India or Tibet or something. Life is the supreme guru, and it will definitely use a partner to help you out in that pursuit for inner freedom. And partners, I think in one sense, have a unique ability for that because they can trigger in us things that are so deep that literally nothing else has the ability to trigger, which is why for me personally, relationships have easily been my greatest catalyst for growth and healing, because they've really showed me all my blind spots.
I 100% agree with that. I think it's our, like you said, it's our life situation and our soul contract, which way we're going to take. If we're going to do more of the single approach where you're more monk-like, you're doing your thing, and other people are going to choose to be in a relationship. And I agree with you, relationships, having a partner, that's when they can really push your buttons and trigger you, piss you off. In yoga, they say that your partner is your guru because they cast the light on your darkness. They can get really down deep in there and dig up the stuff. And that's where we get the opportunity to learn, because, without somebody pushing our buttons and bringing up the stuff, it can just sit dormant. It sits dormant, and our partners can awfully be very skillful, either intentionally or unintentionally, of, shining those lights and pushing the buttons. And then it allows us, when the shit comes up, then that's when the spirituality really comes to play. Because then we have to mitigate our emotions and our actions and how we can, handle that and be in integrity. So we're not just, lashing out and letting our demons go and all that good stuff. So.
Right. Yeah. Whew. If it's in you, the relationship will trigger it at some point. It's inevitable. Mm-hmm. And all that a guru does, like a true guru disciple relationship, the guru just points out the disciple's ignorance. That's all the guru does. And so in that sense, your partner is your guru, like you said. Yoga teaches this because your partner will show you your ignorance. Mm-hmm. So you have to go into a conscious relationship beginning with the premise that anything that does not represent or anything that does not reflect freedom to me is my responsibility to see and heal through awareness. So I never blame my partner. Like, you made me feel this way. You said that thing. You shouldn't do that anymore. That triggers me. Because now you're just bypassing what the real problem is, which is your own self-perception. So instead you just say, okay, what did you show me? That's an insecurity. That's a jealousy. That's a whatever. It's always my responsibility if I get triggered.
Thank you for saying that. That is so beautiful, especially in our world where, it's easy to point the finger at everybody else, oh, that person did me wrong, and that person, and you made me feel like this, and da-da-da. And it's always our responsibility. It doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. We have to take responsibility for our actions and what we say and how we react to things. And I always use the expression, I keep my side of the street clean. It's like, I don't care what my neighbors are doing. I don't care if their yards are full of weeds or there's garbage in it. Like, I'm going to keep my side clean. I'm going to sweep my porch, my stairs. I'm going to mow my lawn. Like, everything's going to be good. And I'm not going to blame my neighbors or lash out. And so thank you for saying that. I think it is so important, especially probably shouldn't go down this rabbit hole too much, but in our cancel culture and how everything is you, it's like,
you're
no.
the problem. You're the problem. Yeah. No self-responsibility at all.
Yep. And it's so important in our relationships. And, you know, everybody wants to have a happy, healthy, thriving relationship. And one of the keys to that is what you just said. Taking responsibility will add so much peace, harmony, joy, pleasure to your relationships. Like being less reactive, not blaming, you know, all like, woo, having effective communication. Boom.
Yeah. I'm sure you can say this too, Jessica, but man, for myself, like coming from this side of the spectrum, being super codependent, clingy, attached, insecure, jealous, and having done so much work for years through relationships, beginning with that premise of I'm going to take responsibility for my shit. I'm tired of blaming my partner. If she wouldn't have done that or said that, I wouldn't hurt this way. I'm sick of that victim stuff. I'm taking responsibility for it. And from that point forward, you just start to grow so fast because whatever comes up, you just say, thank you for showing me that. Thanks for that, showing me that little bit of jealousy still remaining or insecurity. And you cannot imagine the freedom, the expansiveness you feel being in a relationship when your partner cannot trigger you anymore. You want nothing from them. You're not attached to them. So you just want their highest good. You're just here to love and serve them, right? Yeah. That's a true conscious partnership. And I think on the other side of the coin, you know, we've talked about how your partner can trigger you, but the flip side of the coin is that your partner's your guru, also in the sense that you can polarize deeper together than you can alone through that devotion, that love, that service, and through deepening your intimacy and connection, which, as we'll, I'm sure, talk about, happens a lot through sex. Mm-hmm. You can grow so much with someone when you're both on this journey together. It's kind of like, if we're going to take a journey somewhere, how much faster and safer can we get there if there's two of us versus just one of us, right?
Yes. I too have been on that side of the spectrum that's codependent, needy, insecure, feels anxious, needy, and all that. And I love that you use the word freedom, because I too have experienced so much freedom being on the opposite side of that spectrum. And one thing that I've said for years, and I will say today, it's being equanimous. Like there's this inner peace, there's this stability. I am steadfast and sovereign in my being. So no matter what happens on the outside, it's not gonna screw with me. And so when we enter a relationship from that point of view, and I love how you flip the script, and we're talking about when you do come into a healthy relationship without that blaming, with that calmness within you, and you also come in with this collaborative attitude of, you know, I think in our modern day relationships, we're always like, you're going to hurt me, you're going to be a jerk, and I'm going to be prepared to defend myself, and I'm not going to let you hurt me. And there's this instant, when we enter relationships, instant combativeness, instead of like, I care about you. I want to build and create an amazing relationship with you. And I am in this, and I'm going to treat you with integrity, our relationship with integrity. And it changes the way, of course, our intimacy is and our day-to-day, but it also changes the quality of our tension. And when we do get triggered, because then there's not this mean lashing out. It's, I love you. Let's handle this properly and not take each other out in the process.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'm going to take your wild card and throw in a question here, because this touches on one of the most asked questions I get on this topic, which is, how do I attract a partner who's in alignment with me and wants a conscious union, right? Yes. How do I attract that perfect match? Mm-hmm. And you just touched on it when you said that we go into relationships so often with these preconceived ideas of how it's probably going to be based on how it was in the past. And so a lot of this stuff's a foregone conclusion in our mind. It's really subconsciously more a matter of when than if. So you're expecting the guy to cheat, you're expecting the girl to have baggage or whatever. So here's where we go back to law of attraction, right? Wanting nothing attracts everything. Mm. But when you need something, like what you want runs away from you. And when you let it go, it comes to you. So it's like, if you're needy enough for a partner, if you're lonely and you just can't be by yourself and you just feel like you'd be happier with a partner, which is totally not true. If you feel like that's true, then you will settle for less than what is truly in alignment for you. Kind of like if you're in a sales conversation, like with a salesperson, and secretly you really want to buy that product, but you're trying to pretend like you don't. And so you're going to talk the salesperson down. Well, you're going to pull the trigger sooner or later, and usually sooner if you want it bad enough. So let's say you buy the house for $500K, but if the opposite happens and you're like, I got so much money, I don't need this house. Like, convince me I need this house, buddy. Like, that guy will talk you down to $350K to make the sale because you didn't need it, right? So you were willing to let it go, which means it actually attracted a better deal for you. And it works the same in relationships. It's like, be self-sustained, love yourself, give to yourself all the intimacy, the sensuality, everything you want from a partner. Give it to yourself first, and then you'll be fulfilled inside and be like, no, I'm more than happy to wait for the perfect match. And so whatever comes into your life that's not in alignment with what you want, where your vision is, your desire for spiritual growth in a relationship, like if it doesn't reflect that, you're going to see it right away. But if you're trying to convince yourself because you're so needy, you overlook the red flags and you pull the trigger too quick. You know, I use the example of like, you put out the intention to the universe, like we all do. Universe, bring me the perfect person. Universe says, okay, got it. Let me see how bad you actually want that request. So it gives you the 60% match. And if you're needy enough, you go, oh, this is it. Thanks. Pull the trigger. And then, you know, a couple months, break up, start all over again. Not a bad thing. You learn some lessons. You grow a little bit, a little more firm in your convictions of what you want. But then the universe brings the 70% match. And you're like, no, this is it. Pull the trigger. And another breakup happens in 6 months. And so we go through that until we suffer enough, usually, where we're like, look, I can't put myself through another exhausting breakup again. Like, I am waiting until it's such a screaming from the mountaintops, mind-blowing yes that I can't even believe it's happening. And if it's not that, I'm really not interested in it. And funny enough is when you get to that place where you're absolutely resolute in what you want, typically it comes pretty quickly. You don't have to wait very long.
It sure does. And I love that you bring that up because so many people are so ready for love. I mean, I hear this on the daily. I'm ready for love. Right now, I'm ready. And a lot of times we need to approach and look at our love life as a spiritual journey, and that there's lessons to be learned along the way. And when it comes to manifesting, sometimes the right person will come right in if the time is right.
Yeah.
Yet for a lot of people, the partners will show up better and better as they are working down their path. And that's something that for the people who are listening and they're at that 60%, 70% person, like, keep your resolve, keep working, keep, I like to have the perspective of being a scientist or researcher and looking from the outside in and being very curious about what's going on. So you are learning the lessons so you can get to that 80, 90, 100% partner. And two, when you have that inner calmness and that strength and this like, hey, I'm good if I'm going to be single the rest of my life, or I'll be just fine if a partner comes in. There's this true contentment with our lives. We can not only experience just a great life day in and day out, but we can also handle the trials and the tribulations of dating, because dating, I call them mini heartbreaks. They're full of mini heartbreaks. There's these little letdowns. You know, you might be on Bumble, you might be excited about a person, and then 3 days later, they say something dumb and you're disinterested, or you get ghosted. There's a lot of pitfalls when it comes to dating. And so when we have that inner strength, then we can just roll with it, and it doesn't take us out of the game, and it doesn't hurt. We don't get, wounded, and we just kind of take it and we're like, oh, well, that's not my person. Move on.
Yes. I feel like patience and gratitude are like the two most powerful attracting energies you can have, because patience says, I'm already fulfilled. I don't need anything. Gratitude says I'm acknowledging the abundance already in my life, which means I'm a match to more of that kind of abundance. Yeah. So it's like be in that attitude of patience and gratitude. And I think that that comes from, as you touched on just now, just working on that part of me that's not okay being alone. Woo, so it's like, can I get to the place where I can accept the possibility, you know, if I was single, if I never find true love, mountaintop love, I can be okay. I'll be happy just as fine in that lifestyle as I would in a partnership. Work on getting to that place, because the fear is the ego will tell you, well, don't do that because then you'll attract that kind of life. No, that's not true. What do you want? If there's a desire and you're like, yeah, I think it would be great to have a partner. I would love that experience. If it doesn't happen, that's okay. I can accept that too, but there is a desire in me for that. That's what you'll attract. If you truly don't want a relationship, then you're going to be in the place where you're not going to attract that. It's always about what you want, but what you want doesn't have to come at the cost of lack and poverty mentality and sadness and loneliness. It doesn't have to be that way. You can want it and be totally okay with it not being there at the same time.
Thank you for breaking that down. Beautifully said. And so often I will encourage people to remember that universe, spirit knows your heart, knows what you need. And
better than you do.
Yeah. So often we're like, I'm ready or I'm not ready. Or, you know, we have all these judgments like, honey, sometimes we are a poor judge of ourselves more often than not. And so
we try to convince ourselves.
Yes. So often over the years with myself, just like the daily prayers that I will have is just, you know, there's times that I will try to orchestrate my life and control it and, you know, take responsibility like a good little girl. I'll just stop and I'll say, listen, God, I know you know my heart and what's best for me. And I just trust that whatever plays out is for my highest and best good, period. Thank you.
Yes.
Love you. Peace out.
Well said.
Thank you. Let's talk about sex, shall we?
Let's do it.
I feel like we need a little salt and pepper here, like
a little sugar and spice.
All right. How can sex complement our spirituality?
Great question.
Great question. I love this question.
You know, I'm a little hung up on where to go with this because there's different ways we could take this. How can you use sex to complement your spirituality is what it's saying, is the question. So I feel like the place to start is to have a really solid understanding of the two types of sexual energy exchange. And they're both fine. They're both equally valid. Everything we talk about in this podcast today, everything is equally valid. There's nothing wrong or bad or sinful. It's just about what do you want? That's it. So in what do you want, this questioner's pointing to the fact that I want to use sexual energy to enhance my spirituality, more love, more peace, more connection. So that has to be done through a positively polarized sexual energy exchange. Yeah. So the positive polarity in law of one is radiating or outpouring, and the negative is in-streaming or magnetic, drawing into itself. So to start from like the foundation, what we have to know is the perception we have in our mind going into a sexual encounter tells you everything about what polarity you're exchanging. So if you're going into a sexual encounter, which this is the modus operandi for most people, going into it with the belief that like having sex with this person will make me feel enhanced. It will satisfy this urge I have. It will make me feel more masculine or feminine or whatever. If there's anything about you being enhanced from the experience or gratifying a urge or a lust or whatever, that's a negatively polarized sexual energy exchange, which means it's not going to lend itself to more love and peace. It's going to lend itself to more of an urge to satisfy, more of a need to be fulfilled. Yeah. So if we talked about this in the last podcast, but typically the man is coming in with this belief that, you know, I'm conquering this woman, which then enhances me as a man. But what does that actually say about my self-perception? I'm going in to conquer or dominate or possess something because I lack. I'm empty inside and I'm trying to fill that lack with this encounter. So a positively polarized energy exchange is the opposite, meaning I'm going into this because I love this being. I want to experience them in their essence, because experiencing them is like experiencing an aspect of God, of the divine. I want to serve them. I want to give them pleasure. To see them in pleasure is my pleasure. That's outpouring, right? That's radiating love. And so that's going to be a positively polarized energy exchange. And the thing about that is you can't have that with someone you don't know or haven't built a connection with. You can have that universal love for anyone, of course.
Sure.
But building a connection with someone in intimacy is how you actually polarize that connection over time. So you have to deepen that connection. And so this is why Ra describes in the Law of One that higher density positive beings. It's kind of the nature of the way that they exchange sexual energy is they pair off, and they call it the mated pair, because just like two electrons getting more and more charged over time, the capacity that has to polarize is infinitely higher than changing connections with a new person all the time. You're sort of starting from scratch every single time. And the other downside to that is it tends to lend itself towards a service to self attitude, which is negatively polarized. So it just goes back to, what do you want? And I think that this is why authenticity in our sexuality is so important, because we have a lot of people I see that lie to themselves or fool themselves about their real intentions, specifically in the poly community. People will tell me or tell themselves that they're into polyamory because, well, I have to share this universal love with everyone. No, you don't. You just have a sexual ego that needs to gratify itself. And that's okay. Admit that there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not at the place yet where I can sustain a conscious partnership. I've tried in the past, and every time my eyes wander, my lust takes me away from the relationship. So I have to be honest about that, right? Now, I'm not saying this is always the reason anyone ever gets into poly, or that it has to be this way. Of course, everything can be done in a conscious way. But I will say every experience I've had around polyamory or communities that are poly has always been that. It's been a giant sexual ego that can't satisfy itself and is now shifting over here to use spiritual language to justify its behavior. And that's just inauthentic. Don't pretend like you're having sex with lots of people because you need to spread the love and light of the creator. Like, you're not fooling me or yourself. We all know that's not true. If you're honest about it and say, I just need this experience, that's spiritual. Yep. Give yourself that experience, right? Nothing wrong with that. And if that's serving you, keep running with it. If at some point it stops serving you, you'll know, because the desire for it will just drop away.
I agree with you. I think in this perfect world, this utopian world, we could absolutely have multiple partners and have open relationships. And it could be like this free love kind of vibe, everybody happy and having different partners. We are not there. We are not there. We are not that conscious right now. And
no, I have many stories to back it up too.
Yes. I've heard some of those stories. They're quite fascinating. And I see it with my friends and clients. And I'm so glad that you brought up polyamory, because I had so many listeners ask about polyamory. And I also think on the individual basis, I think that these people have good intentions who are into polyamory or want to experience it. I think they do have a lot of love to give. And there's also ego in there. And there's also confusion. Like they're lost and they're seeking, they're seeking something. And, I'm all about people doing what they want to do. I would just say that to the people who are questioning polyamory, and if they want to go down that route, I would definitely ask yourself some really, really tough questions. Talking to the ego as much as you possibly can, examining the ego and really getting to the heart of the need, of the desire, and be really real. And push out society and all the judgments. Because some people are like, polyamory, that's horrible, that's disgusting, blah, blah, blah. And there's other camps that are like, it's the shit. Like, this is like, you guys are all missing out because you're not over here, playing with us. So I would just urge you all to deep dive and do some soul searching around it.
Yeah. Could not agree more. It's just, again, just be authentic with yourself.
Yep.
Don't use the dumb excuses that I always hear of like, well, I'm just a really sexual person, so I just got to have sex with lots of people. That's not the reason why you're into poly. We're all very sexual. It's not that people who are in monogamous relationships, they're just not sexual. No, they're oriented differently energetically, right? And that's the question of, what do you want? Do you want, like, if you could, in your perfect world, if you could be with one person and have intense, passionate love with them for the rest of your life, or if you could, be in the poly community and have 100,000 partners before you die, which one sounds more in alignment with what you want? And then go pursue that. Just be honest about it.
Yep.
And that's how spiritual growth happens. As you said, there's nothing wrong with being polyamory. There's nothing less spiritual about it. But to know how the game of sexual energy works is to understand that this is not just with sex. This is with all egoic desires. The satisfying of personal desires creates more desires.
Yeah.
So don't think you're going to like, oh, I'm poly because I'm a very sexual person. Well, you're going to become a whole lot more sexual then, because looking to satisfy that urge through having sex with lots of people will turn it up even more. Yep. So is that where you want to go? Yep. Great. Awesome. Is that where you want to go? No, it's pretty exhausting. Okay. Then we might want to talk about how we can begin shifting our sexual energy to become more positively polarized. Because both are valid, but both lead very different directions. And I can attest to that. I came from, in my 20s, was very much the way any typical guy is, just unquenchable sexual appetite, got to do it every single day, hopefully more than once a day. And it created a lot of suffering for me. It's extremely exhausting to have such an unsatisfiable itch all the time. And I got kind of tired of it. Like, where's the off button? Like, this is just, it's consuming so much of my energy every day, my mental energy, my sexual energy, my spiritual energy. It's all getting sucked into this endless vacuum of sexual lust that, from my experience, doesn't seem like it can be satisfied, because I'm trying, man, and it's not working. So coming from that place, to now being at the point where I've balanced my sexual energy from doing so much work on it, that, to be totally frank, I don't hardly even think about sex, or the idea of it doesn't even pass through my consciousness at all during the day until the very moment I'm about to have sex. It just happens spontaneously in the moment. And then the sex is mind blowing every time. But it's because I don't have this void inside of me that's looking to be fulfilled. I'm so fulfilled all the time from the incredibly loving, intimate sexual connection that is just, to me, endlessly more exciting. And it leaves you feeling like, as much as the negative polarity leaves you feeling even more unsatisfied and more lustful as time goes on, positively polarized sexual energy leaves you feeling more and more satisfied. And it's like the sex is so profoundly good that it's like I could go a week between sex and just be overflowing at the amount of energy inside of me, because the connection was just electric, right? And so it's like, just understand that those are the natures of the polarities. And then, as I've said 100 times in this podcast, which one do you really want?
Which one do you want? Touching on the polyamory real quick, when we are talking about the energy exchanges, when you are polyamorous, you have to be, it's more work in order to make sure you are having good, healthy partners that are on that positive polarity. So, it's not just the commitment of sex or relationship that you have to foster. It's also making sure that you are spiritually, energetically safeguarding yourself. When we have one partner, we're dealing with one person, one vibe, right? And
it's energetically safe.
Yes, it's energetically safe. So I just wanted to make that point with polyamory. And again, not right or wrong. I mean, you do what you want, and like, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
And then going, you talking about that insatiable need. You and I have talked about this at length, because we talk about people all the time in human behavior and spirituality. I have a lot of friends, I've had lovers and clients who, all different categories. I've never dated my clients. But I want to,
good for you.
Thank you. That I've had a lot of athletes come into my world, and we talk about this a lot, since they are in this world of, there's always a plethora of women and sex and money in that second chakra, that sacral chakra, that it's so powerful, and the money and the sex are kind of interwoven. That going back to that insatiable appetite, that often the question that they need to ask is, how much sex is going to satisfy you?
Right.
Like, what will it take? And it's wild to, work with clients and ask this question, to see that aha moment, that it's like, it really stops a person in their tracks. Because I think that it is part of the ego. And one of the questions that was submitted brilliantly was, is the desire to have sex centered around the ego?
Yeah, great question. So what I talk about with ego is that ego is simply the act of being identified. So when you believe that you are that sex drive and that it must be answered, it must be fulfilled because it's me that wants it, that would be ego. But it's totally possible to have the awareness around that and just understand that it's just another energy of the body. It's a part of evolution. It's an animal instinct, and it's going to be there, but it's not what I am. It's not fundamental to me. So I can actually dictate to it what I really want. And it's when we just are mindlessly giving into the urge all the time that the animal instinct takes us over. So it's like, be the captain of the ship, right? Take your power back from the animal nature.
Yeah.
And this is why the unquenchable need for sex is indicative of some real distortions in those lower chakras, because that's the nature of the negative, is to possess, conquer, to dominate, to take for oneself. And you touched on it a second ago. There's really two big problems. Like, if you're going to go into the polyamory community or whatever, be very vigilantly mindful of these two big problems with that. Number one is the safeguarding your energy. Now, as I said, is it possible, is it possible to be in a conscious relationship where you've healed yourself so much that your partner no longer triggers you and you're totally selflessly there to love and serve them? Is that possible? Totally. Is it common? Hell no, right? Super, super rare that happens. But that's what we're working towards, right? So it's going to be the same deal for being in a polyamorous type of sexual orientation, meaning you're going to have to do a lot of work on yourself not to be attached, jealous, all these things that inevitably surface when we're exchanging sexual energy with lots of people. And you're going to have a lot of people coming to you who have a lot of healing to do, who are very, very broken and distorted, because again, that type of sexual orientation lends itself to people who have huge sexual egos that need to be satisfied. So it's like, one, be very protectful of your energy going into that, and be very wise about who you choose to share energy with, because there's huge consequences to sharing energy with people. Not even just about like sexually transmitted diseases and stuff, but actually mentally, like taking upon yourself the types of imbalances in them. Law of One talks about this. You're exchanging so much of your essence with somebody in a sexual energy exchange. And if it's a negatively polarized exchange, you're exchanging the negative aspects of that person's consciousness. And if it's a positively polarized exchange, you're exchanging the positive aspects, which is kind of funny actually, because a lot of charlatan gurus and people out there we could name who have these reputations for posing as a guru so they can really sleep with lots of women, right?
Yep.
Well, what's funny is they use this excuse that, hey, I can make you enlightened if you have sex with me. That's kind of always what these fake gurus will tell women. And what's kind of weird is that in the law of one, Ra basically says that that's true, is that you can actually make your partner, you can elevate your partner's level of spiritual development up to yours through sexual energy exchange. So it shows how powerful sexual energy is, that you can either bring someone up to your level or somebody can pull you down to their level.
Mm-hmm. Or you can pull somebody down.
Or you can pull somebody down,
Yeah.
right? It can happen either way.
Yeah.
But if you're going to pull somebody up, and this is why the charlatan guru can't make anyone enlightened through sex, because it has to be a truly authentic, honest, conscious union with two people who love each other and are there to polarize together. And if you're manipulating someone and telling them what they want to hear so they'll have sex with you, that's obviously not a conscious union, right?
Yeah. Ooh, you're so right. And it's even showing up in science how a woman's body will change. Her DNA will change due to her sexual partners. Like the actual
I didn't know that.
semen will change a woman's DNA. And
that's incredible.
That is. So if you take even that biological information and then, the what's going on in their psyche, I mean, it's pretty crazy that a Bumble hookup, just like a Thursday night, let's go have some drinks, have a little sex, can really have an impact on a person. And I think as a society, we have no idea that that is happening. And I mean, we could see it sometimes on a gross level, as far as there's a hookup and the next day one of the people just doesn't feel very good, or both people, they're just, you hear that, I feel empty inside, I regret doing that. Well, it's like, that is the big indicator that there was a negative energy exchange there, and it doesn't feel good. And I think we're asleep to that as a society. So I'm glad you are waking us up, Aaron, and showing us, that there are consequences, and
just know the game you're playing, right?
Know the game you're playing. Yes.
That's important. If you're going to win the game, you should know the rules of the game.
We all want to win.
That's why I love how you just said that you ask your clients how much sex is enough sex for you, or how much sex will satisfy you, because you're inviting them to have a bit of an aha moment of like, oh, is sexual satisfaction due to quantity or quality? Mm-hmm. And that's a huge discussion, right? Because this was the other of the possible negative drawback that you should really watch out for, is that, again, just knowing the game you're playing, the nature of the negative polarity is that it becomes more distorted over time. More and more entropy is built. So you need sex even more. And the types of things the kinds of stimulus that turn on the animal in you, become more and more distorted as well over time. Mm-hmm. Like nobody just wakes up and just gets into child porn or something. Yep. It happens through years and years and years of pornography addiction, letting the mind run rampant into sexual fantasies. Yep. And you have to keep upping the ante. Why? Because there's more entropy in the system. Yep. So it's like, look out for that to happen, because it will happen if you're not very conscious and aware of how you're using and exchanging your sexual energy. And so it's like, just look out for those things, because in a negatively polarized energy exchange, it's going to head that direction, and you're going to have to be mindful of that.